Hi everybody, and welcome along to another episode in Body and Mind. And today with me I have Peter Fysh, who's a local young lady who I've known for quite a few years, now a mum of two, and she has this amazing business called Whole Mother Healing. And I've always been curious. I've never had a chance to sit down and talk to her about it. So my curiosity's got the better of me, and I've conned her into coming on and saying, tell me about this Whole Mother Healing. So what is Whole Mother Healing, Pete?
So my business, Whole Mother Healing, is a holistic motherhood support business. And the idea behind it being called Whole Mother Healing is the belief that when mothers feel whole, they get to enjoy motherhood more, they get to connect with their children more, they get the most out of motherhood. And on the flip side of that, whole being the fact that it encompasses mind, body, spirit, soul, heart, all of it. It doesn't just focus on one part of the mother.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's quite involved because there's a lot of parts in the mother, right?
There are a lot of parts, and there's a lot of modalities and therapies out there, and I feel like they all have their place, but a lot of them will just focus on one part. You know, they'll focus on the physical part without taking the emotional side of it into consideration, or, you know, they'll focus on the spirituality of it, but they won't focus on where things are being held in the body. So yeah, the modality that I use, which is through Reconnected, it's called Reconnected Birthing Practitioner Training, that encompasses all of it, as well as I incorporate Reiki and like some psychic medium modalities into it, and some sound as well. So every single session with a mother looks different depending on where she's at, what she needs, what's coming up for her, and yeah, so it's all tweaked depending on the mother I'm working with.
Well, it's very different to how I grew up.
Yes.
I mean,
you became a mum, and
well, we became a mum and that was it, and you got on, and no matter what,
yes.
and you just went out there and did it, regardless of how you felt, or you didn't even take that in, you didn't have time to take that into consideration, really.
No, and that is still relevant now too, that you become a mum and life just carries on, basically, which can make it really hard to have the space to process or integrate or grieve or whatever's coming up for you once you're a mum, because you're just thrown, you know, straight into it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like the work that I do, it's not just for the mother that's in front of me, but a lot of the time birth can bring up intergenerational patterns and inner child wounding and all sorts of things. And so the way that I work, it can not only kind of work with helping the mother that's in front of me, but it can also stop things being passed on forwards to her children, and it can also like heal things back in the family line.
Yeah, because things are multi-generational, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that a lot myself. And I'm aware of the things I've had to process myself as I've got older in life, because it's you don't realise it because it's all subconscious. It's not something that's, and some of the things you don't, that you've gone through, or trauma that you've gone through, you don't even recollect it.
Yes, yeah.
There's not necessarily a memory of it, because I've learnt that that we have the DNA of our parents. Right, so we have that, and then their parents and their parents. So we're already born with fight and flight, in a sense, because if you go back through history, I mean, they didn't really have a great life. I mean, they struggled and they worked hard. It was a completely different world to today. I'm not saying that people are not working hard today, but it was just different, and it was not the same.
Yeah.
It's a journey for a mother. I can remember, I mean, even just processing you have a child.
It's huge. It's a huge
that
transition.
has a whole different personality.
Yes. Yep. And you are 100% responsible day in and day out. I feel like there's a bit of like a slap in the face of the relentlessness of becoming a mother is, you know, you're exhausted, you're recovering from birth, all the things, and then you're like, this is me now, like this is my responsibility to keep this little human alive no matter how I'm feeling, how tired I am, you know. And what you were saying about, you know, we're built with that DNA, particularly so when females are in utero, they've already got, like at some point in the development, we've already got all the eggs we're ever going to have. So as an egg, we're inside our mother as an embryo who's inside our grandmothers. And so all these things, you know, can come through as well. And so sometimes I'll be in a session and something will be coming up for this mother, and we'll kind of tap in and be like, does this feel like yours? Like this particular feeling or this particular story. It might be like guilt or resentment or something, you know, does that feel like yours? And when we really tap in, sometimes it's like, no, like this has come from my mum, or this has come from my grandmother's experience, you know, and we're still carrying it through because, like you said, you just, you know, you and our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers, you just got on with it. There wasn't this processing, this deep diving into what's there for us, and so it has kind of been carried through. And I feel like now there's just a lot of awareness of having the option to not carry that if we don't want to. And like the beautiful modalities like what you do and other people do and I do, to have the opportunity to change that.
Well, to you know, to instill more of an awareness. I mean, we're aware most of the time, but a lot of the time we're not. We just react. We don't respond. There's a difference between reacting and responding.
Absolutely.
But I've even found that with my daughter, I now have a 3-year-old born on the same day as your little one. And I also have a 4-month-old, and I see her, and now I was in that same situation one time in my life, right?
Yeah.
So, but I see her, and I actually think, how did I do that?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how I did it. I think at my era, a lot of kids just went to daycare because this is where 2 people had to work.
Yes.
So let's bring that part up, because I now realise that the whole mother healing also, I think, is a really profound thing to think about when I see my daughter coping, not working during the day, but coping 24/7 with 2 children.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't have that. There was a part of the day where I was at work. So that's a long time. That's a good amount of time to not be with the children, for you to actually come back into yourself as a woman.
Yes.
Right.
To be
so you
yourself.
actually so you got the mask. They got the single mask back on because there's no children. Right.
Yeah.
And but I'm also seeing the rewards that these children that are actually staying with stay-at-home mums, are actually progressing so much better than children that are just put into a daycare. I mean, Leisha went to a daycare, and she was smart, very intelligent, but she's turned that around for herself.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing thing for me to witness.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that needs to come back.
Yeah. And I think there's no right or wrong in terms of mothers using daycare or not, but biologically, and like my background is I was a farmer's daughter and then a vet nurse for a long time before I became a mum, and so my brain goes a lot to like biology and animal instincts and things like that, and we're biologically wired to be with our caregivers, you know, for a big chunk of our childhood. Like they talk about the first 7 years being the most pivotal in terms of connection with your main caregiver and stuff like that. And you know, if we weren't with our main caregiver, like in the sense of the village, like there'd be aunties and sisters and grandmothers and, you know, all around all the time. And this segregation that has, you know, been brought in through society is really unnatural. And I think a lot of the time, like a lot of the work I do is around birth trauma, although I have things to say about that being called birth trauma. A lot of it is, you know, these mothers feeling like they can't trust their intuition. And so they'll be feeling like, oh, you know, like it feels wrong to be separated from my baby, but that's just what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to put them in daycare. And, you know, I don't think it's by accident that the economy and society is set up that way, that, you know, you have children and then they go to daycare so the mothers can get back to work and put into the economy, and the children go to school and then they're programmed to do the exact same thing and go back into work.
Absolutely, yes.
And I, you know, for a lot of families, it's not sustainable to only live off one income and have a mum at home or the parents
It's too
at
hard
home.
today. It's I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, and
but it's been created to go that way.
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
but in the long term now, if you look at AI today, your children are not going to be brought up. They're going to be brought up by robots.
Well,
they will end up being brought up by robots.
It is terrifying. Yes, yeah, they're already being brought up by robots in the sense of screens and stuff like that. But yeah, it is a huge load to be with your children 24/7 when you're doing it on your own. Because yes, the men, you know, designed off to go and hunt and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the mothers and the women wouldn't be at camp in the village by themselves. They'd be with all the others. And so there'd be the sharing of that load of like, oh, this auntie will watch the kids and this sister will cook the dinner and, you know, that kind of thing. Like this huge load that is on mothers in
today,
this modern society is insane and completely unnatural. And I think, you know, like I'm studying, there's a beautiful woman, Dr. Sophie Brock, and she does motherhood sociology, like that's her thing, and I'm studying through her as well. And it talks a lot about the difference between being a mother, so you as a mother loving your children, and mothering, like doing the actual work and the load of mothering, and how sometimes, you know, we can love being a mother, but we're exhausted by the mothering. And then that makes us feel like we're not coping, we're not, you know, we're not, I don't know, like strong enough or...
Superhuman.
Yeah, exactly.
Superwoman.
When it's not about us, it's about the way things are set up. And so it's kind of, I don't know, I don't think it's accidentally, but it's breaking mothers and women down to feel like they're failing. And
exactly. Well, the thing is, you can keep going and become that you know, because usually a lot of the mothers will actually be not just looking after children. They'll be the cook, they'll be the cleaners, right? They'll also be, when things need to get fixed around the house, they need to get the quotes in because the husband's at work.
That's right.
They then pay the bills. They're running to the post box or post office. Or, you know what I mean? It's like there's so much there. The shopping, everything. You add it all up. It's more than 24 hours a week. Yeah. Right.
Oh,
Lots more. Probably double that.
Absolutely. And a lot of the time, like the mothers are the ones that are responding in the nighttime as well. You know, and I'm not saying that they do more or harder work than the dads or the other parent that goes to work. Like that's a huge load as well. But it's like both parents are exhausted, and then they're trying to have this beautiful connection with their children and provide and do all of the things, but they're both burnt out. And then I feel like a lot of resentment can come up in relationships because, like, who's got it harder? You know, it feels like that's a pattern that I see a lot, is who's got it harder.
Yeah. And
I don't think it's that anyone's got it harder, it's we've got it different. And, you know, the partners that go to work full time, they can't really relate to this relentlessness of, you know, 75 snacks an hour and mum, when you can't get one task finished, like from start to finish. You rarely get that done because you're like pulled here and you're pulled there, and you know, and then so the partner that's been at work gets home and they're like, oh, I'm exhausted, I've been at work all day, and the parent that's been at home is like, I have not had 2 seconds to myself, can you have the kid, you know? And so that's a really common thing that turns up too, because we're not meant to be in these isolated, like, nuclear houses where it's 2 parents. And, you know, I've often joked that, like, the perfect number of parents is 3, right? So that someone can have the kids, someone can do the cooking, someone can be resting, and then you rotate. But really, it's the fact that we are biologically wired to be with our children for a huge chunk of their childhood, and we're designed to be surrounded by other families and help.
And that's not happening.
It's not there because, I don't know,
Well, no, it's just the way, that you said it before, it's just the way society is being driven. You know, like we're programmed to start with from our parents, and then school, and then work, and then, you know, it's coming to that stage where, you know, everybody wants to be somebody. Right, we're born to be somebody.
That's right. Yeah, we've all got to.
But who is the somebody? You know, it's a deep thing when you think about it. And I think a lot of, well, from what I've seen so far, a lot of women today with children are actually not coping that well because of that.
Yes, yeah. And
because they have no support.
well, that's right. And I think a lot of that feeds through from their parents being in burnout as well. You know, like our children feed off our nervous system so much more than we realize. Like they are such connected little beings,
they know.
energetically.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And so, yeah, like we're feeling burnt out and exhausted, and we're a bit, you know, more short fused with the children or something. And really, like when you zone out and you look at what your children are asking for, it's always connection.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
they might be asking for the 10th snack, but really they just want some focus, some one-on-one time from you and them. And yeah, I know it's not an accident that we've been brought into this like segregated,
well,
separated.
and the other thing too with women, like even though they've got this huge role, remember they started off with two, right? The partner and you, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, when you don't realise that when you have a child, that the partner is really not really there as much anymore because this is the new thing,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That also, the woman still tries to maintain that at the same time sometimes, and that I think becomes a real.
I think a really big way that we've been let down in society is that because we're not living in these villages and there's not this kind of like knowledge being passed on, is like becoming a mother or becoming a parent. Like, you know, I talk about the mother side of it because that's, you know, my personal experience, what I relate to, it's who I work with, but it is such an identity shock because we haven't been in these villages where we're seeing, you know, our cousins and our sisters and our aunties and things become mothers, and you know, the transition that they go through. Like, it's the biggest initiation we're ever going to have in our life is becoming a mother. But then we're just expected to carry on like, oh, we're just mothers now, like keep going, everything's the same except you have a child, only everything is different.
Everything is totally
You know?
even your fears change.
Oh, everything. And I also feel like, you know, like children biologically are much more attached to their mothers for the first, say, 3 to 4 years, and then they start becoming more interested in spending time
with somebody else.
Else.
Like
And that is biological programming because that's how they survive, right? You don't see, you know, like other mammals usually sending their children off with the dads in the first, you know, 2 to 3 years. They're always with the mother, and I think that can cause a bit of divide too, because then the dads feel a bit rejected, like they're not getting the one-on-one time from their partner, but also their children just wants the mum, and, you know, like stuff like that. And that can cause issues in relationships too, because we haven't been taught, like, this is just biology. It means nothing more than biology and survival. And, you know, it's not personal, and it's going to shift and change as the children grow. And, you know, if we had been there and we'd seen like, oh, this is how families grow, and this is how families develop, and this is how relationships change once they become parents, then it wouldn't be such a shock, and it wouldn't be feeling like such a personal attack, you know.
And the mother be more rested as well, you know.
Absolutely.
Because even just holding a child, you know, just holding a child for 10 minutes gives that mum that little break of not carrying the baby.
Yes,
you know?
exactly. Unless the child really wants to be with the mum, and then it's stressful if the person doesn't give the baby back, because you know, her whole body is being like, oh my god, my baby's like distressed without me, like come and let my nervous system calm your nervous system. But I think the fact that we live in these separate houses, and you know, humans are so good at masking. We're so good at being like, everything's fine, we're fine.
Oh yeah, no.
And so you see your friends have children and become a family, and you're like, oh, we're fine, and behind closed doors. It's
They're
like,
not
you
fine.
don't help me, you don't do this, the kids, you know. And so we're not aware of that until you become a parent, and then it's almost like you're led into this secret club, and you're like, oh yeah, it's hard, it's like exhausting,
you're on your own basically. That's basically because society is basically, we've been sort of, I guess we've been conditioned to believe that we're separate. We are just separate beings that look after number one, and we don't worry about anybody else. because that's their issue,
Yeah.
not my issue.
And yet we all need everyone else
and everybody,
to survive.
yes, because we're mammals.
That's right. Yeah, we are. And I think like a lot of the work that I do is bringing these mothers back into connecting with themselves and, you know, what feels live and true for you in terms of how you want to mother and how you want to be within your family and things. And, you know, like you would see this a lot, like, you know, we want our partners to change or heal or do whatever, do the work, like meet us where we are, that kind of thing. But we always have to go first, right? Like you can't force someone else to want to grow
you can't
or
change
heal or
anyone
understand.
else, no.
Like you have to go first, and then either they follow and they match up, or, you know, you get an even further separation. But I think it's like letting mothers feel that they have that power within them to do what feels right and true for them and their children. You know. And yeah, like I was saying before, like the term birth trauma is so nuanced for me, because yes, like some of the birth trauma that we see is from birth itself, you know, from the
I can talk about that.
Oh, exactly. The
I had
pain they
birth trauma.
experienced, the panic, like you know, their baby being critically unwell, or, you know, tragically losing their baby and things like that. But a lot of the birth trauma that we see coming through and working with is actually from the people that have been in the room and the effect that they have had of even the language we use, like, oh, you know, failure to progress, and, you know, things like that. And it's all kind of put on the mother of, oh, she didn't succeed.
Oh yeah, I was, with the second child, I was told to shut up.
Yes, see, exactly, and that is just, oh.
Yeah. And my
that
first
breaks
child,
my
my
heart.
first
I'm
child,
so sorry.
while my partner left the room, the actual doctor, I felt something being tugged at, but I didn't know what was going on. It's my first child.
Yeah.
I mean, what's next, you know? And he asked the nurse to pin me down while he put his hand inside me and ripped out the placenta. That was my first ever birth, and
heartbreaking.
my husband came in as he was scooping it in bits and pieces into a bucket. I got a severe infection from that.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And that is just
But that was like straight after birth, and then I find out through my daughter that the actual placenta can take hours to come out.
It can.
It's
It can take
normal.
hours. Yes. And this is where, you know, we see a lot of the stuff that's come through, and I fully believe that, you know, hospitals have their place and they're really important. They do a lot of good.
Oh, I agree.
But their protocols and the timing and their, you know, the staff
Compassion.
shortages.
Mate, let's do with compassion.
Well, no, like it's all these things that are putting the pressure on to have like these policies that make it like, oh, this placenta's taken too long. Quick, let's get it out of there. There's not much space for physiological birth and biology to do what it's designed to do. You know, and there's a lot of fear and a lot of panic, probably because of, you know, the high rates of how easy it is to sue someone now. Like, oh, if we don't do this and this happens, we'll get sued, you know, and like, and
I didn't do that.
you know, no, of course not. But now,
But I would now.
It's commonplace, and so there's a lot of fear because birth has been pulled so far from what's natural and what we're designed to do. It's like it has gone from being a natural event that sometimes needs medical assistance to it's a medical event that sometimes happens naturally. You know, and that is so damaging for the mothers and for the babies.
Yeah.
You know, often you see like videos of babies being born and they're born into, you know, a stranger's arms under bright lights, rubbed down vigorously with towels and things, and then they're checked and all the things and measured and whatever, and then they're given to the mum.
Yeah.
Like nature has intended for the baby to be born and brought to the mother's chest, like instantly, you know, and that connection is pivotal for breastfeeding, for oxytocin to flow, which can help the placenta come out, like also like it's all designed for the mother and the baby to survive. Right? It doesn't make sense for our population to procreate in a way that is designed to be, you know, dangerous for both of us. And of course there's times where it is dangerous and things go wrong. Like that's life. But I feel like we're so disconnected from allowing anything to go wrong that we've gone to the other extreme of we've got to control everything.
Yeah.
And that is causing harm in
Yeah.
so many ways.
Mind you, though, I mean, Leisha, the birthing unit in Bustleton Hospital was amazing. I actually saw that, and it's amazing.
Oh, and there are,
and they are more. I don't know. It was. I thought it was like a 5-star hotel suite. It was amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is amazing, and I think
so. They are changing in that way, and having the midwives there to deliver. So that's a different thing too. The doctor doesn't really step in unless you've got a gynecologist, I guess, delivering your baby specifically.
Yeah, and birth centres are becoming more commonplace as well, where it's like an in-between between a home birth and a hospital birth.
Home births are becoming very popular.
Yeah, it is, and that's amazing in one sense, and in the other sense, a lot of that has come about because of the trauma that has been experienced in hospitals.
Previous lives.
Yeah, well, in the hospital sense of it being.
Oh, really? So the first one might have been born in a hospital.
Absolutely.
Really?
It's so common to I'm not
doing that again. Oh my!
And so the next step. So home birth is where you've got like a registered midwife, usually 2 midwives. They're supporting the birth. Sometimes a doula.
Yeah.
Highly recommended. And then a free birth is where it's just the mother and the partner, maybe a friend or a doula, but there's no midwife, there's no medical person there. And so that's like the other side of it, and that also has often come from the trauma that's been experienced either in previous births or friends' births or family births that they've seen, and they're just like, nope. And some of that is not from birth trauma, it's just from women being very like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I was made for, this is how I'm going to bring my children into the world.
They intuitively feel it.
Well, yes, yeah, and some of it is amazing and it's empowering, and some of it has become quite toxic, where if you enter that field of free birthing and then you don't happen to free birth, it's you didn't do the inner work, you weren't ready, you weren't enlightened enough, that kind of thing, which is also very damaging, because sometimes like there are true emergencies that need assistance,
and there's still another side to that too. You've got the side where we found, when we told some of our friends that Alicia was home birthing, they were absolutely shocked, and they were like, "That's very irresponsible."
Yes,
irresponsible.
Yes, because we've been conditioned that birth is dangerous, because it's a medical event that sometimes happens naturally. That's where society is at, and so that's where they're like, it's irresponsible, it's risky, what if this, what if that?
Yeah,
what if
exactly.
this?
That's exactly what happened.
Yes, yeah, and the midwives, like the home midwives, and we're so lucky down here, we have so many incredible home birth midwives. They have like the hugest array of things that they can do in the sense of an emergency. So
they know.
Oh, they're incredible. They're absolutely incredible, and I think it's so amazing that home birth is building, because like the difference for a baby to be born into loving arms in a calm environment where the mother feels calm and supported and in her safe zone, compared to a mother being on the clock because of hospital policy, bright lights, strangers in the room, like the mother potentially feeling panic because everyone's so busy doing medical things that they're not actually tuning into her, and it's huge for the baby and for the mother, and how that dyad and that bond forms over time. But the work that I do is it's really hard to explain exactly what happens, because every session is different. But a really beautiful example of like a client that I worked with, so part of the session that we can go into, like if the mother's willing and that kind of thing, is to do like basically like a meditative body scan, and just tapping into what's physically there, like like a sore shoulder, there's some pain in my lower back and things like that, and tapping into that pain, and just kind of like, okay, when you tap into that, like, what are you thinking about? Like, what comes up for you? That kind of thing. And this one particular client, she came for a birth debrief, and she thought that her trauma was kind of around her birth. It didn't go to plan, that kind of thing. And then when we started working through it and talking about it, it became apparent that most of her trauma was sitting in her early postpartum period, where her partner and her mother basically made that phase all about them. You know, it was like, oh, but you know, I need to go out with my mates because like I've been here at home with you, like supporting you for 3 days. You know, I need to go out and let off some steam and stuff. And you know, the partner, and then you know the mother-in-law being like, oh well, you know, like I need some time for myself, and you know, this isn't all about you. You know, like that kind of thing. And so we tapped into her body, and she had this particular spot in her back that was just, you know, causing her a lot of discomfort, and she'd go to chiro and physio and things, and just nothing was really helping. And then so we did this body scan. She's like, oh, this bit in my back, I really want to like tune into this and see what's there. And she kind of tapped into it, and as she was like talking about and seeing what was there, it was like this huge resentment piece that in her early postpartum she had towards her partner and her mother, but she hadn't been able to tune into that previously. And so we kind of tuned into that and like, okay, well, where are you? Like, you know, because you kind of like take yourself back in time to that previous version of yourself that's in postpartum, and you know, how are you feeling? What are you know, like, where are you? Who's there? And all this stuff came up with her partner, and she's like, I just didn't have the energy to say anything to him, like, well, that's, you know, that's not fair, like, I need you, like, whatever it was. And so we kind of, you know, I gave her the opportunity and was like, okay, so picture him there with you, and he is open and willing to hear anything that you have to say, and you know, that previous version of yourself can say whatever she needs to that she didn't get to at that point in time. And she just started like letting out all this stuff, you know, and I try and encourage the mothers to say it out loud, because there's so much power in actually vocalizing. Exactly. And so many females have a blocked throat chakra because, you know, be small, don't say what you mean, be polite, keep the peace, all the things. And so she was like, you know, that really hurt me that you felt like going to hang out with your mates was the most important thing, and I felt really unsupported and rejected, and like you didn't care and all this stuff. And as she's saying this, and you know, like tears are coming out, her body's having this beautiful release from, like, I was probably this distance away from you, her back like popped in this particular spot, and I could hear it from there. That's how loud it was. And she just had this massive release. And then, you know, she was just like, I can't believe that bloody spot in my back that has been causing me so much grief is because of this that I, you know, wasn't even aware of, that I was kind of carrying around. And so it's like really powerful work in terms of, you know, like birth debriefing it's just starting to take off now, I feel, you know, because we were saying before, you know, like you just have a baby and you carry on and life keeps going, and you're too busy as a mum to tune into yourself and all that kind of thing. And so birth debriefing has just become a thing, and so it's like there's so much power in not only telling your story, you know, of like, oh, this is how my birth story went, which can be helpful for some people. Sometimes they just need a safe space to just let their story out with someone who gets it, you know, and holds them in like the hugeness of a birth story. And for some it's like, I really want to go deeper and let go of what I'm carrying, because it's holding me back, it's holding me down, it's weighing on me, it's affecting my connection to my children and all sorts of things. And so I love that the modalities that I use are just like so, you know, they just flow depending on the person. Yeah,
because you also do Reiki, don't you?
I do Reiki as well, So a lot of the mothers that come to me, they'll book in for a debrief, and then I have the option for them to add Reiki onto the end of it, which is such a beautiful way. And I play the crystal sound bowls just before I do Reiki, and it's such a beautiful way to, you know, because it is big to go through your birth story and to like revisit these parts of yourself. And so to do that, and then, you know, obviously we wrap it up and bring her back to the present moment, and then talk about how she feels now that that's happened. And often it's feelings of like lightness and relief and that kind of thing. And then for them to get to lay on the bed and have some sound healing, and then do the Reiki and just, you know, like check how all the energy is flowing with the chakras. And sometimes there's really clear messages there of, you know,
for them,
of what's going on, and visualizations and things. And so to have that nurturing aspect of it afterwards is quite unusual. Like you know, you don't often go to a therapist and have multiple therapies done at the same time, and so you have this like, you know, big therapy session, you bring up all this stuff and it's feeling quite big and raw, and then it's like, okay, see, you're back to the real world now, you know. So this is like a beautiful integration piece, and you know, and sometimes mothers come to me just for the Reiki and sound, and that's powerful in itself.
Some people just need that. Yeah,
absolutely. And so yeah, it's really,
and you know, sometimes I guess some mums, I don't know whether you'd call it denial or whether you would, you know, I don't know what you'd call it, but some mums would probably say, like you said, yeah, no, I'm fine.
Absolutely, because
but that's painful, because to me, if they're not, and that's when they're not saying how they feel already, and that's then.
Yes.
So what have they held back prior to that? It's massive.
Exactly.
And then they can't work out why they're sick all the time.
Well,
right?
That's right. If you don't kind of deal with what's there emotionally, spiritually, that kind of
You
thing, then it
repress
shows up physically. And you know, like one of the big reasons that drew me to this work, you know, was my own story, but also in the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia, one of the leading causes of maternal death is suicide, which is
maternal death.
Yeah, so mother's death. Usually it depends on the study, but often it's within the first year of motherhood. The leading cause.
The woman actually commit suicide.
Commit suicide.
And leave a baby behind.
Yeah. I
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know suicide is massive, and that doesn't get covered by the news. I know that.
No. But
especially that one, because I've never heard of that one.
Yeah. So there's different studies for different countries, and they have different time frames, but it is one of the leading causes of death, which to me is just...
That's horrid.
Absolutely tragic. You know, that's the point they've gotten to, and, you know, where's the help in between that? And, you know, sometimes it's what they've experienced with birth and motherhood. Sometimes it's what birth has brought up for them from the past, because it, you know, anything you haven't dealt with previously, birth will rock that out of you and bring it to the surface. And I just feel like that is a big driver for me, is the fact that these mothers felt so desperate and alone, and like they couldn't cope anymore. And they wouldn't even discuss it with anybody, because have anybody to.
Well, sometimes it's just, you know, the ego, because a woman presents herself as a strong woman most of the time. Most women think they've got it all together, right? Even without the baby, right? Without the birth. Yeah. So when you had the baby, right, you're still maintaining that strong woman, right? I think it'd be so hard for a woman to turn around to the people that have always thought of her as a strong woman,
to then say,
I'm having such a and I think even with normal suicides, I think that's the thing. People are too proud of themselves to say, "Hey, I need help." Yeah, you know, and a lot of people do need help.
Yeah, a huge amount, and you know, a lot of that has come from the oppression that women have had as well. You know, of like, you just get on with it and it's just your job, and you keep the peace and you don't say anything, and you know, like abusive relationships are like through the roof at the moment. And so, you know, a lot of these women have been broken down of like, you're not important, what you need doesn't matter, you know, that kind of thing as well. And so if they feel like they've got no one to turn to, or if they're trying to ask for help and they have a partner that's like, oh, don't be ridiculous, you know, every mother copes, why aren't you coping? That kind of thing, you know. Then if they feel like they can't go to their partner for it, or you know, their
they're
whole
really
soul
lost. Then
is
they're totally lost.
Exactly. And so, and it's big to be vulnerable and say, you know, I need help, and to find these safe places where you can do that. And so, I'm really passionate about the work that I do and the importance of it, because for me, I feel like, you know, mothers who are confident and believe in themselves have a far better chance of raising children who are confident and believe in themselves, and that's what the world needs. Is for
absolutely
us humans to believe in
and having that support from friends, and it's more of an understanding, really, isn't it? Really, I mean, when we had the family living here for 7 months, and I didn't realise that, there was a lot of energy that had to be coming out from me to what I'm used to.
Yes.
After living for many years nice and placid and quiet.
Serene.
And it was it was huge, and that was a really good thing for me to take in, and it was a great experience because it made me realise that it was really tough for me when I had children.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't as tough as what the full caring mothers are.
Yeah.
To me, I don't know whether I would have been able to do that looking back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's different too, like every mother is holding so much, whether she's a stay-at-home mum or she's working and then trying to switch between roles, and
Exactly.
like it's a huge load that we're not supposed to be.
Yeah, because
carrying.
you're going to work, picking up the kids from daycare, then you're cooking dinner, then you're putting them in a bath, right?
Yeah.
And then husband comes home, like you said, and then the kids are going to bed.
Yeah. And
then you want to talk.
Yeah.
And they're tired.
Yeah, or you're tired.
Or
Or they want some loving.
Yeah,
and you're touched out and all of the things. And I feel like, a lot of mothers can feel really dissatisfied with motherhood, particularly if their children are going to childcare and that kind of thing, because you're almost missing out on...
You are missing out a lot.
And you're missing out on like the best parts of the day with your children, right? Like in the mornings, kids need a slow morning. They need time to like wake up and like reintegrate to the day and, meet themselves and play with their toys and that kind of stuff. But we're rushing them. We've got to be at work at a certain time, which means you've got to be at daycare at a certain time. You've got to be at school at a certain time. Rush. Pressure. And then they go do that. We go do work, and then get home, pick them up, and then all their feelings that they've been masking during the day and not being able to let out come out in the afternoons and at night time when they're finally with their safe person, where they're like, oh my god, today was really hard and I'm really upset and I don't really know why, and all that kind of stuff.
And the other person wouldn't understand it, actually.
No,
they're not going to understand that.
No, not at all. And then it's like bath and dinner and, like you said, bed. Yeah. And then you do that 5 days a week.
And what happens if you have a bad day at work?
Well, exactly. And then the kids are going to be feeding off that, and then they're going to be triggering you because you're already like heightened or overwhelmed, whatever it is. Like
it's full on, isn't it? Really,
it's huge. It's
mentally,
huge.
it's a big ask.
It's absolutely huge. And then we're naturally making that about ourselves. Of I'm not coping. I'm failing. I'm not as happy as I should be. Why does everyone else enjoy motherhood and I don't? Why are my kids so
they're the ones saying, "Oh, I'm fine."
Exactly.
And they're not. They're actually going through exactly the same thing as you.
Yes,
but they're not going to tell you that because I'm good.
Yes, nothing to see here. And so, like, another part of my business is mother circles. That we can do that, that we can sit in
like
circle,
a village,
like we are programmed for, like we're supposed to be like, you know what, I'm having a really tough time with this. Oh, me too, and even if mothers share different stories of what's going on for them,
that sounds so good.
Like nearly every mother can relate to some part of another mother's story, and whether that's live and true for her in the moment, or whether that's something she has experienced, or her best friend or her sister has experienced. We can all relate to each other's stories, and so there is so much power and beauty in mothers coming together in circles, because that's like storytelling. That's what there was before technology and things. Like we'd sit there and we'd share stories and we'd pass knowledge on, and that's a huge part that's missing in society now. And so I feel like mothers circles are a really powerful tool that's just so
opens things up.
So necessary to be able to drop that mask and to relate to each other and to feel like, I'm not the only one who feels like this. I'm not the only one who's going through this. I'm not the only one who's struggling. I'm not the only one who loved the first year of being a mother and I'm really struggling with toddlerhood, or I'm not the first mother who.
And it's the same when someone tells you, like through my work, if someone comes up and tells me their issue or their trauma, their story, and I listen to it and I go, oh wow, that actually happened to me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And they go, oh really?
Yeah.
All of a sudden they just they just feel like, my gosh, someone actually knows what this feels like.
Yes. Because a huge part of being a human and being able to survive as a human is belonging. Right?
Yes.
Is that need to feel like we belong, like we're a part of the collective.
Yeah.
Because to be ostracized on your own, like that means death, right? We need each other. And so, yeah, that recognition of ourselves in someone else is hugely therapeutic.
So what would you say drew you into doing exactly what you're doing now? You said before, like, part of your own trauma with childbirth and...
Yeah. So my first birth, the pregnancy was a surprise. My partner and I had only been together for 3 months when we fell pregnant, and he was living on the East Coast and I was living here, and that was a whole thing. But I was terrified of going to hospital. Like, I already had white coat fever, you know, of just being terrified of, people in white coats, in institutions, in the medical system, that kind of thing. And I was just like, you know, I also had very difficult pregnancies. I had what's called HG, so hyperemesis gravidarum, which is extreme pregnancy sickness. It's not morning sickness. It's not anything that Ginger can fix. It is all day, 24/7, vomiting, nausea, like you cannot eat anything, you can't keep anything down. So both of my pregnancies were extremely difficult.
Was that through the whole 9 months?
My first, so with my son, it started around 6 weeks and it lasted for the first 7 months. And with my second pregnancy, 3 years later, just under 3 years later, with my daughter, that started at 4 weeks and went through until 8 months.
Wow, yeah.
And there's medication that can stop the vomiting, but there's nothing they've really found that works for the nausea.
Oh,
so it's
gosh.
like feeling car sick and hungover and at the
Seasick.
start of gastro and seasick all at once, 24/7, and there's nothing that stops
that's a
feeling. Which is...
It's very warrior.
It's huge in itself.
Yeah, that's especially after you've done it once and you do it a second time.
And some mothers are really lucky and they don't get it, but statistically, if you've had it once, generally, you have like around an 85% chance of getting it again, and it generally starts earlier, lasts longer, and is worse with each subsequent pregnancy.
Is there a reason? Is it to do with the genetics of both the male and the female?
It's very, very early in the study of it, but they're talking about a gene that responds to the placenta growing, and just somebody's reacting to that. And so I'm really hoping that by the time my daughter, who's 3, by the time she potentially wants to have children, they have done an absolute butt ton of research into this, and they've got some solutions, because it's hell. And if your mother has had it, you as a daughter have an extremely high percentage chance of experiencing
it. Did your mother
as
have
well?
it?
No.
Right.
And so it was a huge shock, and so they're not really sure why, you know, some of us get it and some don't. And there can be sisters where one will have HG and one does not. You know, and so it was a huge journey being pregnant.
And to have that to start with,
yes.
so that was my pregnancy experience. That was trauma for a long time.
Yes, yeah. And I was at my fittest then. I was into surf life saving, I was running, I was surfing, all the things, and I lost 10 kilos in the first 2 months that I did not have to lose because I couldn't keep anything down. And I was severely dehydrated, and you know, it was really hard to get help from doctors to have them believe me of just how extreme it was. And you know, I was a bit cautious of medication and will that affect my baby, and you know, like, we don't have a very good history of thinking medication's fine for fetuses and embryos, and then it turns out they're not. So I was very hesitant, and it got to a point where it was like, if you don't take some medication to stop this vomiting, like, neither you or your baby are going to survive this.
Wow.
And so it was, you know, it is extreme. Like, it's a really dangerous thing. As well as my partner being based in Queensland and me being here, and, you know, living with housemates that just didn't get it. And, you know, just also feeling like, oh, I'm going to be this super healthy mum that lives off organic food while I'm pregnant. I'm going to keep running and all this, and was like bedridden. Like, I was completely flattened. So there was that part of my story, but then also this, you know, not wanting to go to hospital and being terrified of that part of it. And then I think I was probably about 4 months pregnant, I think, when I heard some other pregnant women talking about home birth, and that was not in my field at all. I did not know that home birth was an option. I didn't know that that was a thing that you could do, and I just thought, this sounds like a dream, you know, not having to go to hospital, having your baby at home in a calm environment, all the things. And so I started like, you know, researching lots about home birth and watching things on the internet of home birth stories, and you know, found my beautiful home birth midwife and things like that. And so I was really locked into like, I'm going to give birth at home. But I didn't know anyone else who had a home birth. I didn't have any friends, any family who had. A lot of my friends were not mothers yet, and so I just, you know, felt a little bit isolated and alone in that. And my partner was super supportive. He was like, well, I don't really know about this, but if this is what you want to do, and you know, he loved our midwife as well, and was just like, yeah, I'm backing you. But there was a lot of pressure, external pressure that I felt from like, this is dangerous, this is irresponsible, like
parents,
why are you doing this, you know? And I also went past my due date, which is, you know, that's a whole thing in itself, is how we calculate a due date.
Yeah,
and,
there's no such thing really, is there?
And different countries having, you know, like different countries say that, you know, 40 weeks is full term, and others like 41 is full term, 43 is full term,
44,
you know.
some of them.
Exactly, and so it's a whole thing. But once you have a date picked, you are on a timer basically.
Yeah, okay.
So
Of the system.
Yeah, of the system. And so my first was born at 42 weeks and 5 days, which is you know, normally anything between 40 and 41 weeks. The heat starts to rise.
Yeah.
And thankfully, because I had my home birth midwife, she was like this beautiful buffer between the hospitals being on my back and us getting to stick to our plan of a home birth.
Yeah.
And then, one of the hospitals in the area were calling me. I had gone into labour, and my home midwife had warned me. She's like, look, they're really stressed that you've gone this far over. They're going to be calling you. You technically don't have to answer your phone. And so having that heads up, I didn't answer the phone, but I had gone into labour that afternoon, and I just like, you know, didn't answer any of these calls. I didn't listen to the voicemails, anything like that. I just like went into my zone, went into labour, and, you know, dilated really quickly, like way faster than I thought. My midwife got there, and we had no water in the pool, and she's like, why is there no water? I was like, oh, because that comes at the end. And she did a check, and she's like, you're 9 centimeters, like we're at the end, like you. And I was like, no, I can't be, I haven't done enough yet. Like I had extreme like lower back pain. I felt like this baby was going to come out of my spine. It turns out, you know, he was posterior, and so that's a potentially painful way to give birth. But I was like, I haven't done anything yet. I've just been laying in bed, like had my partner pressing his hands onto my spine of like, stop the baby coming out my back kind of thing.
Yeah.
I hadn't been up, I hadn't been moving, and she's like, okay, we've got to get water in the pool and all sort of stuff. Got in the pool. She's like, your baby is so close, like it's lean over the bath if that's what you want to do, and then I'll the baby will come out the back and I'll push it underneath for you. And it's like, as soon as she said that, I was just like, holy shit, I can't do this. Like that's terrifying. Like I can't believe this baby's going to be here. I'm not ready for this. Like just went into so much doubt, and you know, like this whole thought in my head of like, what if I tear and then I'm ruined forever, you know, like
all these
ruined goods,
things.
All of the stuff that, you know, has like been stewing.
And women do think like
absolutely, because, you know, society's run by men, and you're damaged goods and stuff if anything happens, you know, it's awful. And just like did not have that trust, maybe because I didn't have the support of, you know, other mothers and women around me that had home birth and things like that full trust of like, your body's designed for this, like your body knows exactly what it's doing, like this is what this area is designed for. It's not just for fun and a good time and, you know, for other people's pleasure and viewing and stuff. And so I got to that point, and then like we just tried so many things, and I didn't realize at the time, but looking back and with everything I've learned and experienced and all this kind of thing, I can see now completely it was like a psychological blockage that I was keeping him in, of just like I could not release, I couldn't relax, I couldn't surrender to this experience. And so he basically got stuck about a centimetre away from crowning for about 7 hours. In the pool, out of the pool, lunges, on the bed.
And the water had broken and everything? Or not?
Yes, I think so. Like there was no dramatic water breakage, but there was not really much trickling out like when I was pushing and things like that. I had two, like the midwife, my own home birth midwife, and then the backup midwife. She had arrived, and because my midwife was like, oh, the baby's so close, like we're about to have a baby, we need a backup midwife. There's meant to be two there. She came in, and they were doing all sorts of like positions and things, trying to help me get this baby out, and just couldn't. And it ended up being that we transferred to hospital, and I had an episiotomy and a vacuum delivery, and we just happened to arrive there when it was shift change. And so there was like basically two lots of staff there, and it felt like there was like 12 to 14 people in the room that I
Wow.
had never met, and I also felt a bit funny because the doctor was a male, and I really didn't want an episiotomy. That was one thing that I was just like, you are not, anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's like where they cut you from your vagina towards your anus, basically, to make more room, which they needed to do to get the vacuum in. I asked him to try without an episiotomy to get the vacuum in, and that just wasn't happening. And so just having all of these things. So I didn't get the home birth. I had an episiotomy that I didn't want. I hadn't the vacuum, which made me feel like I didn't do it myself. All these things. And
Wow.
with the placenta, like one of the nurses was like, oh, I'm just going to give you this shot which will help get the placenta out. And I said, hold on. And I turned to ask my midwife if she thought I needed it. And as I turned, she just jabbed me in the leg with it, to bring on these contractions to get the placenta out. And I didn't know at the time, but I had like completely dissociated, and I was like looking at my baby like, oh wow, that's a baby. But it's like my brain couldn't comprehend.
So much was happening.
Well, yeah, and it's like my brain couldn't comprehend how this baby that was on me was my baby that was just inside my womb, a few seconds before. It was like I was so disconnected and dissociated, but I was saying all the right things. I was like, oh, my baby, oh, you're so beautiful, oh, I love you so much. It wasn't until I had my second birth where there wasn't an episiotomy or vacuum assistance and things, that full flood of oxytocin and just being absolutely like mind-blowingly obsessed, in love, like with this little baby. I was like, oh, there is a huge difference between how I felt the first time and how I felt the second time. In between after I'd had my beautiful son, my first baby, my home birth midwife came and she looked after us and all sorts of things, and I had issues with the stitches, and one of the biggest things that I felt was so much shame. I felt so ashamed that I had been wanting a home birth and I had failed.
Right.
And the amount of embarrassment I felt when it was time to let our families know that we'd had our baby, which should be a joyous, amazing, the baby's here. The amount of embarrassment I had to let them know that we'd ended up birthing in hospital, because I'd put so much pressure and weight on, I'm going to show them, like, home birthing's fine, like I can do this, setting my children up for
and
this.
instead it's going to be, I told you so.
Well, it felt like, and no one said that, but it felt like that. It felt like that. And I also felt like I didn't belong anywhere, right? So I resonated with the home birth mums and the philosophy around that. I didn't resonate with the mums that wanted to birth in hospital for safety reasons, or that's, just what they should do. I didn't resonate with them, but I felt like I didn't belong because I didn't succeed in having the home birth. And so I kind of distanced myself from, I didn't go to a mother's group, I didn't go to, anything that the child health nurse had organised. I didn't connect with other friends that I had that did have children already, really kind of like isolated myself. And then I kept having this recurring dream where either myself or my baby or both of us, we'd go through this birth and we'd die. It's like we were set back in, like 100, 200 years before, where hospital wasn't, like it was a thing where mums and babies die. It's like we were in old clothing and all sorts of stuff. Like it was a really like deep remembering kind of dream. But yeah, there was like death every time. And I just felt like this coming up all the time. And then I'd look at him in the morning, I'd be like, I'm so sorry I failed you. Like I felt like I had failed him by not birthing him at home, which was a huge thing to carry, but I also wasn't talking to anyone about it.
So would you say you were depressed possibly at that stage? Or?
I don't think it was depression, because I've experienced that in my 20s and it felt very different. It was like this lack of belonging, you know.
Wow, that's strong.
And also, like, often with birth trauma, like hypervigilance can be something that comes through, you know, like you weren't able to control the birth, or it didn't go the way you wanted, or people touched your baby that you didn't want, you know, holding them, or they, you know, did or whatever, and you get this like hypervigilance where only I can keep my baby safe. Like, no one else can be trusted with my baby. I need to do everything myself. Everything's got to be perfect, otherwise I'm failing them again. Like, I had a lot of that coming up. And then, you know, I had the hesitancy of birthing again and it going the same way, but also hesitant around, am I going to have HG again, like when we were, you know, wanting to grow our family. And you know, I became pregnant with my second, and like I said, it started at 4 weeks, but then I had a toddler to mother as well. You know, it's like, is the HG actually worse, or is it the fact that I can't just lay in bed and rot? You know, I've got to be present and connected and loving, and, you know, like there were times where, you know, I had to help my son go to the toilet or change a nappy or whatever, and I just about throw up on him, like, because the smell, everything, everything set me off. Like, if, you know, we were living in a caravan at the time, and like if someone opened the fridge and I could smell all the different types of food in there, then I'd just be like straight away. And so sensitive to smells when you're pregnant anyway, and then HG on top of that, it's just, everything is amplified. So then I felt like I was failing him. I was worrying that, you know, my second child was going to be really unwell, because I was even more unwell than the first time. And both my babies, like, somehow, I don't know how, because I was not putting any nutrition into my body. I survived on hot chips and flavoured cow's milk, which I would never normally eat or drink, you know, outside of pregnancy, but they were the only two things I could even slightly keep down. I'm like, my children are going to be like malnourished or deformed, or, you know, something, because I'm not getting these nutrients in. I couldn't take any supplements. Like, the second there was something on my tongue, I would just throw it up. You know, and so I was worrying that I wasn't connecting with him and giving him all the needs, and then I was like failing this baby that I was growing, and how was I going to cope with two? And I dipped into like a really deep depression with my second pregnancy. Like, just, you know, the amount of mornings that the sun would rise and I wouldn't say I would wake up because I wasn't sleeping properly, because I was so nauseous. Like, even all through the night I would sleep with a flannel, because I'd just be like salivating. Like, you feel like you're just about to throw up all the time. You know, that feeling where you get it in your throat and all the things. And the sun would rise and I would just burst into tears with absolute devastation that I hadn't died in my sleep. And that meant that I would have to survive another day of feeling like this. Like,
wow,
it was deep. Huge. It was absolutely awful.
So that's what actually prompted you, all that trauma, and not just that, but your partner wasn't with you all the time either. He would go away for 2 weeks working. And
he would go back over east and things like that. And he works in an Indigenous community in far north Queensland doing music programs and stuff. And so he wasn't there all the time. And, you know, like, it was a really hard time. But then I wanted a home birth with my second as well. I was like, right, I'm going to have my redemptive home birth. And I'd been working really closely with a perinatal psychologist. She's local and she's absolutely incredible, amazing, and she did a lot of EMDR with me. I don't know if you know, like, the rapid eye.
I do.
And it was just so powerful, and I healed so much from my first birth through doing that, and that really set me up for my second birth. But again, I didn't get the home birth that I thought I would get. So I thought, I won't go over my due date this time. It'll all be smooth sailing, all the things. Got to 42 weeks, had a scan, and they were like, there's no fluid around your baby. Like, there is no fluid around your baby anymore. Have the movements decreased? And then I was thinking, have they? I don't know. I've been so busy, like, still feeling gross and like trying to make the most of the last time. It's just us and our toddler, you know, before we become a family. And I was like, I don't know. My home birth midwife rang us and she was like, look, Bubs has to be out within 24 hours. The hospital wants us to go there, you know, just to get you on the monitors to check that you and baby are okay. And there was this huge like grief piece, this huge letting go of, you know, my redemptive home birth is not going to happen. I can't believe I'm here again. I don't want to be in hospital. There was talk of a cesarean, like just so far from what I had wanted. Yeah. And this time we had our amazing doula, and she had taught us hypnobirthing for our first birth, but then I was just so unaware of how helpful a doula can be. They were like, oh no, we'll save money, we won't get a doula. And my brain still goes, I wonder how that birth would have gone if I had the safety of a doula, you know, all the things. Anyway, so we had her, and she was just incredible. And she like grabbed my shoulders and looked me in the eyes and was like, it doesn't matter where you give birth or how it happens, you are the birthplace of your baby. You know, and that was just so beautiful and brought me so much peace of like, you're right. Like, you know, and I wasn't so proud that, you know, because I was given the option, like, you know, it's recommended to go to hospital, but you don't have to. You can stay at home and hopefully go into labour and have your home birth and things. But I was like, I'm not so proud that a home birth is more important to me than the safety of my child.
Yes.
And it's if I didn't know these things were going on, that would be one thing. But to have the information that my baby didn't have fluid around, we didn't know she was a girl at the time. My baby didn't have fluid around her at the time, and that there were risks involved, and that there's this opportunity to, you know, save her. And especially after going through such horrendous pregnancies, you know, I was like, we're going to go to hospital. I'm going to try and surrender to the experience. And then my doula was like, you know what, like, you might be pleasantly surprised. Like, it is not impossible for you to still have a beautiful birth, even though it's not in the place where you thought it would be. Anyway, we went to hospital, got us on the scans, and both of us checked out fine. You know, and they're like, well, you can go home if you want to. And I was like, I felt so stressed of the potential of losing my baby that I was like, I don't feel like I'm going to be able to go home and relax and go into labour anyway. Like, let's just stay here. And had an amazing doctor who was like, look, I can do a cesarean for you now if you want to, but I truly believe that you are capable of a natural birth and that your baby is fine to wait, you know, until tomorrow, and put you on the monitors overnight, all these things. And he was amazing. And I'm so grateful that I had him, because that's the other thing with birth, is it can really be a lottery in terms of
who you get
and where they're at and the experiences they've had and their beliefs and things, you know. It can really change your journey. And so he was amazing, and we had an amazing midwife who was watching us overnight. So initially she was like, your partner's going to have to leave, no partners can stay overnight. And that terrified me. Like, it was already the first night I'd ever spent away from my toddler. It wasn't the home birth I'd planned. I was still feeling quite rotten from HG, and then they're like, your partner has to go, and I was just like, you cannot leave me alone in hospital overnight. Like, anyway, she said, look, he doesn't have to leave, there's apartments downstairs, like, I'll organise one of those for you. And then like 2 hours later, this is probably at like 10 o'clock at night or something, she comes in and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, all the units are full. And I was like, so what? Like, we live, you know, an hour and a half away or whatever. Like, he can't go home. Like, where is he going to stay? And she was like, oh, just 1 minute. She went out into the hallway and she pushed in a recliner chair with some blankets and pillows on it. And she's like, well, unfortunately, they're full, so you're going to have to stay here, you know? And it seemed like she had kind of planned this, waiting so long that this was the only option. And she was beautiful.
That's good that sort of, it shows you both sides of both births, really, doesn't it? Really?
Absolutely, exactly. And so the next day, my midwife said, look, they're going to give us until lunchtime, and then they want to induce you. And that was something I was really like, I don't want to be induced. Like, I know too much about how they say inductions are just natural hormones, but they're not, and the pain relief doesn't, like, the natural hormones that give you pain relief during birth don't cross the blood, you know, the brain barrier. And I was just like, oh my gosh, no. And she was like, let's, you know, like, I had been dilating overnight, and she's like, let's get your headphones in, let's make this happen, let's go downstairs. do some walking, just zone out of everything. And, you know, within half an hour of doing that, I had contractions that were dropping me to the ground.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were out in the garden at a cafe at the hospital, and people were watching, and I just had my headphones in, and I was just so zoned into, like, I'm going to make this happen. Like, I'm not being induced. This is happening. Come on, baby. Like, let's do this. And at one point I thought, I know what's going to help me. I'm going to ground. I'm going to take my thongs off. I'm going to ground on the grass. And I took 2 steps on the grass, and I have never trod on more prickles in my whole entire life. And then my thongs are back there. I'm like, how am I going to... And I looked at my feet, and they were just like covered in prickles. And I was like, this is not the grounding I was hoping for. And I'm trying to like get back to my thongs, like anyway, trying to get the prickles out and all the things. And then later on, my partner was like, oh yeah, I saw you doing something weird with your feet. And I was like, you should have come over. I needed you to hold me so I could get these prickles out of my feet. Anyway, so these contractions were dropping me to the ground, and I spent like half an hour in the garden. And then I was like, I think I need, like, it was getting quite hot. I was like, I think I need more privacy. Like, let's go up to the balcony up there.
Yeah.
Got to the room. I saw the room. It was so nice and cool. I was like, actually, screw the balcony. Let's just go in the room. And then I kind of laboured in there for 2 hours, and my doula was amazing. And the doctors had changed shift. So I had a different doctor now. And he was like, oh, I really think I need to put you on the CTG monitoring. And I had so much gumption this time. I was like, is that because you're concerned, or because I've gone over 42 weeks? And he said, because you're over 42 weeks. And I said, no, thank you. My midwife is intermittently monitoring me. If she has any concerns, then I will speak to her about it.
Oh,
and
good.
then
So you learned from the first one.
Yes, and I had a very strict birth plan of like only essential staff in the room at all times. Like no one is to talk to me without checking with my midwife or my doula first. All these, like, just minimizing interruptions, like letting me stay in the zone. And anyway, and so one of the things is, if you have this CTG monitoring on, you can't go in the water, you can't be in the bath or anything. And then my doula was like, well, you don't have the monitoring, like, why can't she be in the bath? And between her and the midwife convincing this doctor, who was a little bit on edge, who was now on, you know, on duty, to let me go in the bath. And that was like the most relief I've ever felt in my life, was getting into this huge, deep, perfectly temperatured bath, and laboured in there for 2 hours and had this incredible, empowering, natural, uninterrupted birth with my daughter, and didn't know she was a daughter, and had convinced myself I felt a little bit of like swollen scrotum, and my partner thought he'd seen a bit of swollen scrotum. And anyway, I'm holding her on my chest, and after about 5 minutes I was like, should we see who we have? And you know, his whole family is all boys. And anyway, held her up, and she was a daughter, and my doula managed to film it all. And you know, like, you know how it feels to be surprised, but then to see yourself on film of how surprised you are, it's just like incredible. And we didn't realize how much we wanted a daughter until we had her. But it's the huge contrast.
Yeah, so that's, you know, but that's such a beautiful, you know, it's so nice of you to share that, you know, because it's so deep and beautiful. And I can see why you're so passionate about what you're doing, because you have I always say that the person you go and see and spend time with is the one has had the lived experience, has actually can totally understand you and accept you for who you are, because that's where that belonging comes from.
Yes. Yeah.
So what do people do to actually, where do they go to see you?
So I work from home in Yallingup, but I also work online. So I've had really powerful sessions online, and for some people they're like, oh, but there's a screen in the way and that kind of thing. But the other side of it is they also get to be in their home. Yeah. You know, in their comfort zone with whatever things around.
So have you got a website, or at the moment?
I don't have a website yet. I'm very tech, you know.
Well, you got too many other things to worry about.
I'm not tech fluid. But I do have Instagram, and that has a link on it. So
it's at whole mother.
At whole_mother_healing is my handle, and there's on my bio there's a link, and that takes you to booking for in-person Reiki and sound, distance Reiki, in-person debriefing, distance debriefing. And I'm just thinking of like starting a package now where, because this work goes so deeply, you know, often one session is not enough, because then we'll be like, oh, this intergenerational thing's here, and this inner child thing's here, and oh, this thing with your partner's here. And so like doing a series of like combining the debriefing and the Reiki, like for a deeper integration. Yeah.
So those of you who've listened to this great story, and you know, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
If you really connect, if you really want to connect, if you're connecting, if you've actually gone, oh my gosh, I feel that way, and you do need to belong, like Pete said. I mean, we all do. Seek her out at Whole Mother Healing and Instagram. And if you get stuck, just contact us, and we'll give you her number and put you on to Pete.
Thank you. And I also do free 15-minute connection calls too. So if someone's not sure if I'm the right person or if I'm what they need, then we can have that call. And
that's fantastic.
I've not once been able to stick to 15 minutes. It always ends up being about half an hour. Just, you know, so you get the feel of it, and we can, you know, figure out if we're the right, you know, alignment for each other and things. So
great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pete.
I could talk to you all day.
So lovely to connect there. That was a great story, and just to share that experience, I could feel that experience.
Thank you.
It's really good. We'll have to do another one later on and see how it's all going.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.